Each visit, it's a paragraph, it's a chapter, it's a book, and I want that whole story to be there.
Well, it's fantastic to be here with all of you. I have long dreamed about getting clinicians at a table like this, just to have discussions around why we do what we do as clinicians. It's such a privilege for us to do this work, to be able to engage with patients, to try to see the human element in the patient that sits across the table from us or across the room from us. And I think so much of what we do at Abridge and the work that you all do with me is trying to build a better future for healthcare, restoring so much of that joy that we all have for taking care of patients. And what I'd love to know more so than anything is just why you all got into healthcare. And Danny, what was the reason that you wanted to become a physician? What is the catalyst for that?
I mean, the easiest answer is I just wanted to help people.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great feeling to be able to help people who are not feeling well, who have problems and issues and things like that. And I found it to be very rewarding. I have a background as an undergrad as an engineer, which is sort of an indirect way of kind of helping people and stuff. But then when I started volunteering at the hospital and stuff and seeing how, you know, you can apply that scientific background, that knowledge and stuff to really help people is when I started moving towards medicine. Humans are very complex organisms that have a lot of complex systems, just like any other kind of a machinery or factory or anything like that. It's not that different, other than, you know, we're way more complex.
Gayle, thinking about your journey, what was it that where you decided, you know, I want to be a physician, I want to spend my career doing this work?
Well, I started out as a chemical engineering major.
What?
So.
Me too. Two of the four of us.
Me
too.
What?
All right, we'll fist bump.
Then I got to the circuits class in second year, and I was like, I don't even know what chemical engineers do. And so and nobody in my family had anything to do with medicine, and I was the squeamish kid to blood, you know, when I was little and all that. So, but I was really jazzed by my biopsych course that I took, and so I shifted to chemistry and psychology and worked in some labs and stuff. But then I was like, I kind of like talking to people though, and not just being, you know, on a project in a lab. So, I thought, oh, maybe I'll go to med school, and that's. You know, it's not a very exciting story, but that's what it is.
Did you have when you made that decision, did you have a hope for what it would be? Like, I'm making the decision now to become a physician for this reason.
I mean, I went into it kind of with an open mind of, you know, enjoying all the different aspects of medicine, and luckily there was family medicine, so that's what I do, and so you get a little bit of everything and get to see babies, and I did obstetrics for about 10 years when I first started, and then you have the whole families, you know, generations of families. I've worked in towns where you have generations of families living in the town, so it's a very unique family medicine way of doing things. So
I wasn't the engineer route, but I was going to do research, and I had a professor tell me, I think that you don't want to spend time in the lab. I think you want to spend time talking to other humans, which is perfect that I'm at this seat right now, engaging in this dialogue. But it is such the privilege, right, of being able to have somebody seek you out for your opinion and to get to spend time interfacing with them, interacting with them, getting to know them. I know all of you as, you know, family physicians, family providers, clinicians. It's such a special opportunity to build that connection. And Max, I know you've shared that story with me before about your journey of becoming a nurse practitioner, but what was the catalyst for that?
I also started in another field. It was physics and math, and it didn't take very long for me to decide that was not going to be rewarding enough. The pivot was to psychology and philosophy, so a lot of talking, a lot of listening, and a lot of thinking, and then eventually that, as I pursued the psychology route and was considering a PhD in that, I decided it was a little bit too narrow, and decided to go into nursing, which then took me to be a family nurse practitioner, and my experience working in the ER, which is where I landed to start things off. Again, stories, and it's about helping people and finding them when they needed the help the most, because here I was working in probably one of the most stressful environments we can put ourselves in.
Yeah.
For me, that's a great day. And for anyone that's coming into the ER, it's typically their worst day. And that's when I wanted to be there for them. Whether it was an upset stomach or a car accident or things that are worse, my opportunity was to hear them, to help them, and to be there for them in their darkest hours most of the time. And not always tragedy, but the ER is also what drove me to family medicine, because when I saw how many people were generationally coming in, seeing the baby, seeing the mom, and seeing the grandma all in the same room at the same time, I'm like, what? Why are you guys coming to the ER for this? And there's no one in the community to help them.
Yeah.
And so I made the change after 13 years of working in the ER to go into family medicine, because I figured I could help more people that way.
And you get to know them.
And I get to know them. So they will come in, and I get to see that baby grow up and maybe turn into a mom or a grandma herself. And I do have some patients that I've seen since grade school that are now coming back from college, asking me if I'll see their kids. I've been in it long enough that I'm starting to get my generational patients. So it's just a wonderful way to hear people's stories. And I spend a part of every visit finding out how they're doing, not just why are you here. And it's really special to me.
Right, the freedom to open up, to actually have the moment in time to go beyond just like the reason for the visit, I think is the sacredness of that, rather than just like what is the chief complaint. It's so much bigger than that. Like what else is going on in your life? And then that may also interface with that chief complaint, but it actually is like, how are you as a human? And I think having that space is so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the transition from emergency medicine into, primary care is it's an interesting journey, because, when I was younger, I always thought the ED was so exciting, because you see these really sick patients who are coming in and stuff like that. But then after a while, you don't really get to know the patient. You have that one snapshot on that one time, and then you help them get through that. But then as you kind of go into primary care, you start to have that longer relationship with patients, and then you can really see, how the patient develops, and you can help them through multiple things at the same time. And it's also rewarding when you're there for them and you can help them not go to the emergency department, So,
primary goal.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's interesting that so much of the theme here already is engaging in conversation. And of course, as Shiv always says, like healthcare is about the conversation. Curious, like how that has evolved over your careers. Has it been what you've always wanted? We do know that the natural history of where medicine's been has been that documentation and burden has taken over maybe some of that opportunity to engage in conversation. And maybe now we're on the back end of that arc where we're starting to pull away and pull back on that. But I don't know, Gayle, if you had kind of a perspective on like, has it always been what you wanted it to be, or how has it been reshaped now by new technology or just different workflows?
In terms of like documentation and
just engaging with clinician, or engaging as a clinician with a patient in the way that you want to, or the way like as you first started, you thought, okay, I want to be a family medicine physician. This is why. But how has that ability to engage in the way you wanted to evolved?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I started, I was using a paper template,
Yeah, right? Paper
Remember
charts.
That?
Yeah,
I had made a little template, and so I had to check the boxes and stuff. So it was kind of like a precursor to what we would do in the computer, eventually. As far as more data, people bringing in more of their own data and getting data from outside systems and having to coordinate
it's way
all
more
that.
Complex now.
Yes, it's a lot
because everything's just plugged into each other, and you just have multiple sources of information coming at you in different directions, and you've got to synthesize it all in a short span of time when you have that with a patient.
Exactly, and they have all their vital signs and their blood sugars that they want to go over with you, and so in some ways the technology has been good, and in some ways it does kind of take away a little bit of that. Just let's get back to the basics of what's going on with you,
And healthcare's changed too, right?
Yeah.
Because it was before, right? Before we were quality driven, right? It was whatever the chief complaint was, and you were going to do that thing. But now that we have all of these we all have in the back of our mind, right? These quality metrics and that we have to hit, then you're trying to figure out when to squeeze that in the middle of what the patient wants to come and see you for at the same time. And so that just adds, more burden to it. And then on top of that, the EMR, right? We spend so much time looking at the EMR, dissecting the EMR, trying to figure out how to get around in the EMR, and then documenting the EMR. And that's never been easy.
My son decided not to go into medicine because of that.
Right.
And so when he was in fifth grade, he had what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And his story was, do I want to be a lawyer or do I want to go into medicine? And one telling passage in this was, do I want to spend more time looking at the computer than the patient?
Right.
And we had reached that.
Perceptive as a fifth grader.
He's now actually going into healthcare economics. So got into the master's program. Yes, but being able to see where we were, because I started on paper too, right? And I could check a box, or I could write like something that no one would ever read or be able to read, quite frankly. So there was very little value, and I treated it as such. And so you wouldn't know if the patient had labs that were done somewhere else. You would just order new labs. You didn't know what the x-ray result was. You'd have to call and wait for a fax, or God forbid, they have to mail it to you. And so we were really, I think, limited in the type of care we could give, both volume and quality. We actually saw lots of people and didn't do a very good job, is my feeling around this.
And we were contributing to medical waste, too,
right?
Exactly what you just said, too.
All the trees.
Yeah, you couldn't see the whole story.
No, right? and none of it was there. And if you lost the paper chart, how many patients did I have to keep in the ER for hours while we tracked down the chart? Mm-hmm. But with the EMR, the volume is there, we're getting more information, but we're not duplicating the work.
Right.
The trends are there so we can speak to quality and have it be something that we can hold dear, as opposed to incidentally take care of and just hope for the best. So I appreciate that amount of information and what it can, the power that it gives me to change people's lives, or to help them change their own life and guide it. So I don't look at that as a burden at all. I'm trying to deduplicate, I'm trying to be efficient, and I want that all brought together. But the documentation burden became 50%, 60% of a visit, and now I feel like it's going the other direction because I don't have to.
Yeah.
I don't have to write anymore. I'm a good writer. I like my writing. But now I can listen instead.
But still get
of
to the point where you feel like you are delivering documentation, that tells that whole story.
Longitudinally.
Right.
It's each visit is it's a paragraph, it's a chapter, it's a book.
Because
and I want that whole story to be there.
Right. Paper charting, it maybe didn't have the documentation burden necessarily, but the entrance of the EMR has now given us access to data, mountains and mountains of data, which I think generally is a good thing, because you don't want to not have the evidence of something or access to the labs that happened last week or the surgeon's note. But it also means that there's just so much more as a singular human for us to digest. And it reminds me of a couple years ago, there was that article for primary care physicians where about 26.7 hours it would take for a primary care physician to do all of the necessary tasks in a single day, which obviously the math doesn't work there. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna have to find ways to cut corners. And that is really the key thesis here of does technology allow us to pull back and reorient, refactor even the interaction that you all have as primary care physicians and clinicians, as our colleagues who are surgeons, and wondering what that's been like. Have you felt the dynamic change because we are thinking about that what was 26.7 hours of necessary information and dialogue with the patient, but now we're reimagining what that can look like. What has that felt like? Have you felt, with Abridge or by using this type of technology, that it's opened up something different for you in that visit?
I'll say what one of the providers told me too. So there's the time you spend trying to finish all your notes, and we can measure that. But it's not just that though. It's the cognitive load of carrying all that information in your head until you finally have a moment to write everything down.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then if you didn't finish your notes by the weekend, to carry that through the weekend to remember to do it sometime during your weekend. So you're taking time out of your own personal time, and then you're carrying all of this knowledge around with you. And so that part, when I had one of our nurse practitioners come back and just said, the cognitive load that this has taken off of me has really freed my mind. And that allowed me to, when I'm off, I am really off.
Right.
That I'm not carrying or trying to remember every little detail of that because I need to document that later on.
Right.
Yeah, the hard drive was getting full.
Exactly, exactly. But carrying that around all the time?
Yeah. I'm finding it's completely freeing in that when I'm working with my patient, like everything that we're going to do is discussed. It's all out there. And I'm talking to them in a way that they can understand. And I'm not worried about medical jargon or things of that sort, but I can have a concise note that will come in and it will communicate to other people or to my future self. My future self has thanked past self many times for leaving that breadcrumb about what are you going to do next? Because I'm not carrying around as much anymore, but I do have the space and the capacity now to think maybe a little bit more freely because I'm not trying to remember things, I'm trying to create things.
Right.
And when I need to have specific documentation for the pharmacy, I can say, make a pain plan for the pharmacy, and I'll put it into a letter and I'll send it over. If my disability team is doing work, I have a disability team, they do work for me. But if I haven't put it in the note, I have to do the work.
Right.
And so I'll say, make a paragraph specifically about disability with all the details about start date and end date and restrictions. And it will create that out of the context of what the visit was because I covered all of it in great detail so that the patient could understand, but it was never retrievable if I was doing a checkbox note or if I was scribbling something that I'd be like, I don't know what, I wrote it, I don't know what that says. So that has broadened my reach in a way that I didn't really see happening during my career.
Shifting gears a bit to thinking about, one of the other aspects that we have to think about as clinicians in the room is access to information and guidance for how we're going to maybe adjust treatment plans. What's the next step in this patient's care? When we were first thinking about bringing clinical decision support into the Abridge workflow, my perspective to our builder team was the things that prevent me right now from accessing content as much as I'd like is time. I have no time to do it in my day. And accessibility. It feels like I can't access it as seamlessly as I want to. And so that was sort of the spark of where we are now, which is, okay, can we bring evidence-based insights directly into the workflow? And you're all getting a sense of kind of where we're going in this space, but I'm just curious, what is it like, especially as your days get full, to try to make time to ensure that you have the right level of knowledge or current knowledge to make the best decision? Especially now as the information that is being put into the world on a daily basis is as significant and fast growing as ever. But curious on perspectives there of how do you incorporate that? What's it look like?
Well, now I have time to do that.
Okay.
True. Yeah.
Right, that's the number one, time, right? It's like the repurposable time to actually spend a minute more.
Yeah, when did I have time for reading? And that would have taken away from some other vital part of my life, like eating or something else. So now it's funny because I recovered so much time, like I'm going home and making dinner because I also am the cook at the house. I'm seeing my family, I'm exercising, I'm doing all these things. And now you've stolen that time back because I'm going down these rabbit holes about like—
That's the temptation part, right?
It is, and I have to restrain myself sometimes. Like, don't keep digging in. Yeah. Like, just keep up.
You
Don't
won't
get
find
ahead.
the limit.
I know. I have a hard time with that one, but now I feel like there's that opportunity where I can see a little bit more, or prepare myself more, or learn more. And the patients are bringing in their own research and challenging me, with their live fact checking via their own AI at the same time. And so they're
coming in more informed than ever as well, too, which is, I think, such an interesting part of this.
the thing is they're getting information, but it's not guided information.
Well, it's not sourced very well either sometimes.
Even if it was, they may be asking the wrong question and the wrong expectations, but the contextual CDS is what I really appreciate, because it's like, what do you want to know about this particular patient? And so it's like a genie that will tell you about what's in front of you, as opposed to all things of similar value.
I appreciate how with the CDS, with the questions that come up after you've done, and so it's reflecting on what you've talked about, right? And so whereas before, because we've been doing this a long time, and I know how to treat like strep throat, but wait, maybe there's something different. And I remember several months ago looking up and up to date. I'm like, okay, so is there a different dosing schedule or something? And there was, like for peds, it was like a little bit different than what I've been doing. So to get those questions prompted to me through Abridge and the CDS, and it's like, well, do you want to know the latest, dosing recommendations for this?
Are you aware?
I know. I'm just waiting for it to be
I will
like,
say for most infections nowadays, with the growing rise of antibiotic resistance, I'm always acutely aware, and I'm looking for, even though it's like something that should be straightforward, we know that antibiotic resistance is out there, and to have that affirmation that what you're going to prescribe is actually going to still work.
Still the right
I'm
one.
telling you, it's a growing problem. We all face it every day.
When we were testing the CDS product, we put our own clinicians through the ringer of like, how many, we gotta test this to the maximum and make sure there's clinical safety standards to it. And so I kept testing it, and there's so many things I learned. I was like, I think I might be working on like a decade old information here. Maybe I should use this more often.
That was a finding that significant changes in medical practice take 15 years to propagate.
Yeah.
And so 10
Somebody
years
has
ago,
to open up the journal article.
nuts and seeds were not recommended for people with diverticulosis.
Right. Yeah.
When it's actually that's what you wanted to. Those are protective. And so it was 10 or 15 years from having that evidence in place to when I finally heard the last patient say, well, my GI said don't have nuts or seeds or popcorn. And I'm like,
I know.
they don't read because they must not be subscribing to the right magazine, because that's how you found things out, right? By the time we would get information, it was already slightly out of date. Now you have to worry about, is this actually going to last the test of time? Is this durable information or not? But the access to these changes, I feel like that's going to shorten the time between current practice and best practice very quickly.
And so much of it is like, I've been thinking a lot about like the routines we have as clinicians, and sometimes we don't want to break routine because there's just too much friction. And my hope is that by breaking some of those workflows that we've built up over years and decades, that we can shift the course of medicine back to maybe what we all started with. That idea that made you switch from being an engineer to a physician, from going into physics, Max, to going now into being a clinician. And I think that's the hope. But I'm curious on, like, as you look ahead now and you're starting to see the needle move over the past 1 to 2 years, what is your hope for where this goes?
Using more evidence-based medicine, but making it easier.
Yeah.
Like I don't have time to read all the journals. I just don't. And I'd rather read my, historical mysteries than a journal. And so to have that presented, especially
But the journals help me sleep.
No, I read on my Kindle, and it's lovely. So, but to have that presented when I'm seeing that patient for that thing, and oh, well, what about this? This is kind of a new practice way of doing things with this particular disease that saves us so much time and lets us do the things that we want to do.
And when you leave that clinic, you feel the confidence that you did the best by the patient in the room.
And you're doing current stuff, not stuff that you learned 20 years ago that you're still doing, because that's
so much the dread I used to have that I think led to a lot of the burnout I had was just that feeling of, did I miss something? And I just want the confidence now when I leave that I know that I didn't, because I had access to information.
I mean, what I would like to see next is its growth into the pre-charting space, especially as we have these AI-generated patient summaries since the last time you saw the patient and feed that back into that CDS tool so that as I'm getting ready to see the patient, some of those things plus my last note will then queue up, these are some relevant topics that we could talk about on top of what maybe the patient wants to talk about. But that doesn't feel like some of these things that I talked about earlier, like quality, it feels like you're following a script, you have to do this thing. But this thing feels much more tailored to the patient.
Yeah.
And I actually find, to your earlier question, Matt, what I was using the CDS for is I use it for my most complex patients. I look at it. And I find it affirming a lot. So it's nice to feel that affirmation. So I did the right thing. Pat myself on the back. Good job, me. I still know how to handle an autoimmune condition in a transplanted patient who's battling stage 3 cancer, right? So I'm like, okay, good job. Still got it, right? Yeah. And so, but what's kind of cool is that with that complexity and the disease and disease medication, that the up-to-date CDS will bring up these really great questions that maybe I didn't think about during the visit, but then to think about on the next time.
Well, yeah, because how often do you leave the room and think, oh, I maybe should have thought about that in the room, and now maybe there's like a bit of an assist there from what we were building. You know, as we close out, one of the things I just continue to think about is what we as humans bring to the practice of medicine and what it means to have a patient take all the work that it takes for them to come to see you, to come walk into that room. And what does it mean still in the age of AI to be a physician, to be a clinician? Like, what is our role, do you think, as you think about how AI continues to redefine the space, what is innately human about still the role of a clinician?
I think our role is to lead, to guide, to listen, and always to help. And I do like the affirmation when it asks the questions that I had already addressed. Like, I am like, nice one. Oh, my shoulder. I should look up shoulder injuries. But you know, I'm excited for my new colleagues that will only know this. You know, I transitioned from paper to electronic health record, and it's a revolution. The ability to have advanced imaging, advanced testing, and have the results at our fingertips. And if I could get some help in compiling that information, to your point about the quality measures, if it said, you know, the last 3 blood pressures have been too high, here are the medicines they're on now, this is what they've tried and failed. Guidelines, evidence says, try one of these 3.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I've also pended the order for you. And you should recheck their sodium or recheck their potassium. Like, having that there, those are all things that I can do, but they're not things that I can do in the blink of an eye.
Right.
And not things that I can do for every single one of my patients. So being able to do that, it's going to be like, you know, having the brooms dance around the room and sweep the floor, right? I'm going to be full on Fantasia at that point.
Yeah, you get
so
to be
I get to be
conducting the orchestra, right?
A magician, basically.
That's right, you are the
and that's
magician.
what I really want to be.
Yeah. Gayle, curious on your perspective on that, of just as you think about what's non-negotiable about healthcare and being a human in the room.
Well, you're still helping the person. That's the whole goal, is to make them healthier or help them through their illness that they can't recover from, or whatever you're going to do. I found that my patients, when I've used the tools that we have, first of all, they're kind of amazed, and it makes us look really good. But they also recognize that it's the goal is to help them with what they're trying to do. So, like my patient recently that needed to be on one of the anabolic treatments for osteoporosis, and their insurance said no, and why can't she use this instead? And they wanted her to use Prolia instead. And I was like, thinking to myself, but I don't think that's right. So, put it in.
Yeah.
This is the situation. And it's like, no, Prolia would not be appropriate in this patient. And this is why. Yeah. And then I said, okay, can you write me a response to the insurance company of why that's not appropriate? And this beautiful thing, I sent to the patient, and she sent me flowers. She was so appreciative.
Yeah.
That And could I have done that on my own? Maybe.
But
It
you
would
have
taken
the
me
hunch, though.
It would have taken me 10 more.
I mean, it started with your hunch.
Yes, it did. So we still have a role.
Yeah,
thankfully.
intuition,
Yeah.
compassion.
We still have a role.
Yeah. These are the tools to free you up to be
Oh, yeah.
the
To be
best
able
that
to,
you can.
and hopefully she'll get the treatment that she should get for this.
I love that she sent you flowers. It's awesome.
Yeah, she did.
Danny, wrap us up. What are your thoughts on where we are as clinicians in this age of AI?
I mean, I think with this advent, the thing that I have seen with a number of patients and many patients that are not normally my regular patients, some patients come and they have been struggling with some condition or some issue and have not found an answer. The thing that Abridge has allowed me to do is to really listen to the patient. And that is such a powerful thing for patients to feel listened to and heard. And I didn't solve the problem, but I was listening intently because I wasn't busy trying to be on a computer.
Right.
Right.
And that is an amazing thing, because these are patients who have gone to many, many other doctors, and they'll say, "You're the first person who listened to me."
Yeah. What a gift it is to feel seen and heard.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for any
and then
any
this
part of
stage and
us.
age, right? Everyone's got a smartphone. Everyone's like, you ride the plane. I was at the airport today, right? And like nobody's talking. Everyone's down on their phone. No one's having a conversation. You ride the bus. There's no one on the conversation. You ride the subway, and it's like we're so connected yet we're so isolated, And they're looking for answers on their phone to something that they have, and then you come in. And then you can put that all together for them.
And what a gift to think that a patient, a human, can walk into a clinic setting, and that's the moment where they actually make eye contact with somebody, right? Because we're removing the need for all that technology in that room, and you can feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
You can have a conversation.
Brings
That's
us
right.
back to the patient.